Some leaders leave footprints, others leave libraries. You're tuning into the Authors on Mission podcast, where industry giants become literacy legends. In every episode, we talk with authors who turn their brilliance into books that transform lives. I'm Danielle Hutchinson, your host and Chief Creative Officer at Authors on Mission. Welcome to your authorship experience. Hello and welcome to Authors on Mission, the podcast committed to bringing top-tier insights and strategies from established experts who've achieved remarkable success in their fields and wrote a book about it. I'm your host, Danielle Hutchinson, Chief Creative Officer here at Authors on Mission, and today I'm thrilled to welcome the popular mystery author, Karen C. Whalen. She's written many different mystery series, going from the Dinner Club mysteries, the Tow Truck mysteries, to the Sea Oats Beach mysteries. She's always combining cozy mystery elements with beach settings in coastal Carolina. Her books have won multiple awards, including recognition from the 2017 IGA contest and the 2024 Firebird Book Awards. Before becoming a published author, Karen worked as a paralegal in Denver and was a columnist for the National Paralegal Reporter. Today, we'll explore Karen's journey from legal professional to successful mystery author, talk about her creative process, and talk about the unique elements that make her books resonate with readers. After all that, Karen, welcome to Authors on Mission podcast.
Thank you, Danielle, for having me.
Of course. I'm really excited to, dive into this. We have a bunch of different genres and types of books come onto this show, and one of my favorites is always the mystery books. So I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more about it. My first question to you would be if you can just give us a little bit more background to who you are and what led you to writing. For example, your background as a paralegal seems really, unique for a mystery writer. I'm sure it would kind of give you a lot of insights about this type of genre. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit about what led you to writing these books.
Oh, sure. Actually, a lot of people in the legal profession turn into writers because the legal profession works with words. And we're always writing anyway, briefs and doing research, and it's, reading contracts. It's all about words. So there are a lot of lawyers that have written mysteries and crime fiction.
Right, of course. And I think that a lot of your experiences can also be intertwined within the books. Did you find yourself drawing upon your knowledge and your experiences while plotting and developing any of these series?
Yes, I did. So my first series, the Dinner Club series, the protagonist is a paralegal. And so I drew on my experience, of course, with that. And in the cozy mystery, it's an amateur sleuth that solves the crime. So you need to give your amateur sleuth some kind of ability to be able to solve the crime that goes beyond the average citizen. She should have some kind of skill, she or he. And so my sleuth is a paralegal. And as a paralegal, you know how to access public records that most people don't really know how to do. A lot of criminal records are public records. There's so much you can find out about people just by doing legal research. So I use those techniques for my amateur sleuth to be able to solve the crime.
Understood. And are your sleuths always amateur, as you say? From what I look at through all of your books, I guess that's kind of the common trope. Is that correct?
Yes, that's the trope for a cozy mystery. So in my second series, it's the tow truck murder mysteries. And how I got the idea was because the law firm where I worked represented tow truck companies, and also we represented car dealerships that needed to repossess cars, that financed cars, and they needed to repossess them on occasion. And so I worked with tow truck drivers, and I learned the process of the repossession. And working with tow truck drivers, they're a very interesting breed of people. They're very colorful, the ones I met, and they have interesting stories to tell. So that inspired the tow truck murder mysteries.
Understood. And it's really cool to know that you really do draw upon those experiences and the stories that you learned from them as well. So, I kind of wanted to switch directly going into Washed Up at Sea Oats Beach, which is one of your most recent books. In this book, I was looking through it a little bit, and you explore the fascinating world of surf dogs, which something so unique too. So, what drew you to the subject and what was most surprising when you learned about this whole area of, surf dogs? That's crazy.
Yes, I thought so too. So let me give you a little bit of background on how I kind of hit on that. So the amateur sleuth needs to have a reason to investigate because most people leave criminal investigations or murder investigations up to the police, right? They have to have a reason, otherwise it doesn't make sense. So in the Sea Oats Beach mysteries, my protagonist volunteers at an animal shelter, and there's always an animal in the story. And her reason or her motivation to solve the crime always has to do with wanting to save the animal. So in Washed Up at Sea Oats Beach, the victim is a surfer that's washed up on shore. And there's a dog surfing with her. So Brianna, my protagonist, takes that dog home and fosters the dog because it's been traumatized by the whole event of the murder, the homicide that happened on the water. And the dog was left out on the water to fend for itself to make its way back to shore. And it's been traumatized, so she feels compelled to find this family's home. She believes that the murder victim is the owner of the dog, and she wants to find the family because the victim is not identified. Surfers don't carry wallets with them. So this is an unidentified person, and Brianna wants to find the home for the dog. So she feels like she has to solve the crime. So that's where I got the idea for a surfer dog. And I did a lot of research because I don't know any dogs that surf. So I did a lot of research on it, and there are videos after videos of these dogs surfing. They're so entertaining. And I found out they even have international surfing competitions for dogs.
Yeah, so that's really cool. International surfing competitions. Is that something that you, in the research process, also were, watching and participating in any way? I'm sure that must have been really cool to find out more about, right?
Right, but they're in California. I'm on the East Coast,
Okay.
and other places too. So I just watched a lot of videos, honestly. And I do know some people that surf here in my community, and I ask them a lot of questions too, because I've never surfed, but surfing plays a big role in this book. So I needed to do a lot of research about, just what kind of clothes, the things that they wear, their
Right.
wetsuits, what kind of things they need to surf, and also for the dogs too.
Yeah, of course. And, that's kind of interesting that you mentioned that, though, that, this location, Sea Oats Beach, is completely on the other side of the country, right? So, you mentioned a little bit about the research that goes into it, but what else kind of inspired this fictional location? Were there any specific coastal towns that you molded it after?
Yes. So I live in Sunset Beach, and in the first book, Murder at Sea Oats Beach, I kill off the chief of police. So you don't really want to use a real town when you're doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And when you use a fictional town, you can add elements to the town that aren't really there. For example, I added an animal shelter that doesn't exist in this town, but most everything else is based on where I live. And I love it here. My first two series were based in Colorado, where I'm from. So you write what you know, and I'm familiar with Colorado. I'm familiar with North Carolina now.
Right. So it's really interesting because when I was looking through it, these sensory details, it really does kind of, transport the reader into the moment. If you almost feel like you're on the beach, at least from the few pages that I was looking through. So how do you balance all this setting and imagery with the narrative itself, with the, fast-paced mystery? Is there a certain balance that perhaps our listeners today who are also aspiring authors could benefit from hearing?
I don't really work on that. It just kind of comes natural, but I like to base my books on places that people want to visit, because I like to read books like that. I like to read books that are set in Paris or, Ireland or whatever. I enjoy that, and the setting becomes almost like a character in the book that you would include. So just as you would include a character, you're going to include that setting, and it's kind of a natural progress when you're writing to include those elements.
Right, that makes sense. And I do agree. It is always exciting to write about a book to read a book that's set in a location that's, somewhere you've never been and you want to visit sometime. It adds a little bit of excitement to it rather than your typical hometown, which is also exciting, but has a different layer to it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So as you were writing this book, I did know that you also have a lot of character development. Not only go into your settings, but also the characters too. And your protagonist in this one, Brianna, she has a social anxiety disorder, which kind of affects how she interacts with people versus animals. And by the way, it's really clear that, her connection with the chocolate lab in the book is a really huge emotional core to the story. What kind of challenges and opportunities does writing a character with these kind of limitations present to you? I'm wondering if there was a certain dynamic when you were planning it, based on that personality disorder.
All right. So I'm not a psychiatrist or anything like that. I don't know that much about mental health issues other than what I've read on my own or what I've experienced, because I have a little bit of social anxiety disorder myself. I've never been diagnosed or anything like that.
I think we all do in some way.
We all do.
Yeah.
I think people can relate to it. But because I'm an introvert like most writers are, and I feel awkward and I can be clumsy and I can trip, and I've walked into walls and done all those things that Brianna does. And so many readers have contacted me or left notes in or comments in their reviews that they understand and can relate to her social anxiety disorder. And I've worried that it dominates the story too much, but other people have said no, this is who she is, and it just comes out. But also it explains her motivation for being so connected to the animals, because she feels more comfortable with animals than people. And it also gives her motivation and a good skill, I should say, rather than motivation, a skill for her amateur sleuthing, because she is paying attention to people. She is looking at their facial expressions. She's saying to herself, what do they think about me? And that's what social anxiety does. It makes you very self-conscious, and you're very aware of other people's emotions and how they're tracking you, and you're thinking about what they're thinking. What are they thinking? And it helps her to solve the crime because she's really paying attention to the people that are on her suspect list.
Right. And, there's also an element to it that, a lot of people tend to write the perfect character. Even in a nonfiction book, your narrator seems perfect. They've accomplished so much. Or in a fiction book, they seem to just do everything flawlessly. So it's always good to sprinkle in those human elements. It makes your characters more believable. The readers relate to them just like you said yourself. It adds a layer of human to your characters.
Mm-hmm. That's the goal.
So yeah, this is just sounding like an amazing book, very cozy and the beach read too. And you also balance it with a touch of humor and romance too. So I wonder if you want to speak a little bit about those elements.
Well, a cozy mystery by definition has humor in it. It takes a light touch with the murder. It's not dark at all. It's usually has humor in it. And usually has a romance in it too. And a lot of times the romantic element, the partner to the protagonist, is often in police work, because that's how the protagonist or the amateur sleuth gets some of her clues. So, it's a trope, but it works. And there's usually, the romance. But in my mysteries, I tend not to have them always connect. There's always going to be tension there, because Brianna is shy, she's awkward, she has this crush on the police officer, but they don't always connect. So that's the romantic element.
Got it. And it is really interesting that certain tropes really do work. And even though it's a trope, it's one that makes sense and just adds to the book and the plot itself, So that's really cool to know that you've embraced that and embodied it in the work too. But this isn't your only book either. Of course, Sea Oats Beach is one of 3 of your many series. So, what's that like having 3 distinct mystery series, 3 complete different worlds and different characters? There must be some type of process you use for keeping track of all the different characters, settings, plot points.
Yes. So I have a binder for each of my series. And in the binder, I have character charts. And if I describe the characters like eye color or the kind of car or vehicle they drive or their address or whether they have children or whatever it is, I make a note of that in the binder so that I can go back and keep track of that. Because by the time you get to the 7th book, there's a lot of characters and there's a lot of world building, and you need to keep it straight what side of the street they live on, for example. And I did write, some of my series did overlap, and they're different voices too. So it's not just the facts that come out in the book, it's the voice that you have to keep separate. And when I'm writing one of the books, I can't stop and just start up another book. So I actually finish one book in a series before I start another book in another series, although the series are being written simultaneously, if that makes sense.
No, it does, because you wouldn't, I understand why you focus on one rather than multiples at a time, because then your brain kind of gets into one of them. You don't want to get anything overlapped if you can't. But the binder method is a huge help. I've seen other authors use that as well. It's a good way to keep track of everything, even the small details, like this character's favorite type of coffee, for example. Like, I can see how that's useful to keep track of. So right. Really good that you're, organized in that way. I know, there's different spectrums when it comes to writers. Some people just, scatter notes on the walls, but, a nice organized binder, you're my type of girl, like nice and neat.
I also keep a list of each book as a quick who the victim is and how the method of murder and things like that, because you don't want to repeat those things.
Right.
And I keep my plot points in a small little document so that I'm not repeating those kind of things too. And a lot of writers do not plot ahead of time. That's that whole plotter versus pantser where they're writing at the seat of their pants idea. I'm a plotter, and plotters tend to be more organized, I think.
Yeah. Also, for me, I always feel like when I'm writing, I need to make sure that I know what's coming next. I need to know that everything I want to include is going to be included, that I don't forget something, I have to go back, rewrite everything. It saves time and also ensures that it's, good to go by the end. So
cohesive and makes sense. And one point follows another point logically.
Definitely. So, a little bit about you. When I was looking at your bio, you mentioned that you love hosting dinner clubs, for example. Does this experience lead to the creation of your dinner club mystery series as well?
It did. It did. And some of the things that happen in the dinner club books actually happened at our dinner clubs.
Oh, that's so funny.
I had baked potatoes in the oven and one exploded and everybody went, ah, right? So that, of course, that had to make it into the dinner club books because, is that a gunshot going off, right? I've never had a potato explode in the oven before.
I would have never guessed. How did you manage to make that happen?
It just happened. It just exploded. Of course, it made a huge mess in the oven. But it happened at a dinner club event.
That's hilarious. I mean, you never expect these little quirks, but that's the perfect kind of quirk to make it into a cozy mystery. Right. So I'm seeing in the background there, you have a bunch of your books there. Do you happen to have a copy of Murder at Sea Oats Beach with you?
I do. This is
There is everybody. There's the dog.
Yeah, there's a dog on this one. This is
washed up at Sea Oats Beach. Yes, there it is.
So these I self-published. My other 2 series, I have a publisher with a traditional publisher, the Wild Rose Press. And in these, I hired a cover artist. And I hired the same one. I just love the covers. I thought she did a good job.
I like that too, and there's a type of symmetry between both of them. It shows you, just by looking at it, it's part of a series because you have, the woman facing away from us. You have the sky, two different tones, which I think is really cool, going from blue to pink.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a great way to keep it eye-catching, and so any reader knows, oh, this is a sequel, like nice and easy. Let me pick it up off the shelves. And
Right.
very cool. Thanks for sharing that with us.
Sure.
So. This is only the second book of the series. I could only guess that we have more to expect from Sea Oats Beach. Is that right?
That's right. I'm working on the third one right now. It's going to be a Christmas book.
Oh, very cool. Beach Christmas. I wonder, do you have any, without giving anything away, any exciting things we could be looking forward to?
I picture the cover, a darker color, and it's going to have boats with lit up because it's going to revolve around a flotilla.
Wow,
So
okay.
that's a boat parade they're all decorated in Christmas lights. And I've been going to the flotillas here every Christmas. It's kind of made it a tradition. And the last one I went to, I tripped over a parking block and fell flat down.
Are you okay?
Yeah, of course. So of course Brianna is going to do that, right?
Of course, yeah, we're all human.
Yeah, I'm a klutz just like her. So I'm not very far into it, but I have my plot points, and I put on Christmas music even though it's spring, and it'll probably come out next year.
I like that. I can see you in your writing room with some, jingle bells playing, and maybe you have some like, hot chocolate or something like that, trying to get in the mood.
Right. That's right.
So where can everybody reach out to you to stay up to date about these releases, to know, when it's going to be out, or if they want to reach out to you, ask any questions, where can they find you?
I have a website, and I can always be contacted through that. I'm also, on Amazon. My traditionally published books are at most of the stores where everybody else's books are. But I kept my Sea Oats Beach ones at Kindle Unlimited, so they're free if on Kindle if people are, part of the Kindle Unlimited program. But I can be contacted almost anywhere that I'm found on the web.
Perfect. Well, we'll put the links in the description box of this podcast so that everybody can take a look, check it out, and stay up to date. Karen, I'm wondering if you could perhaps offer us any writing tips for our authors today. We talked a little bit about plotting. We talked about keeping our characters authentic and human. Do you have any other tips that perhaps we can learn from as we begin to wrap up?
Yes, the writing community is very helpful. Writers are the most generous people I know, and I would definitely join writers groups, get a critique partner, belong to critique groups, go to conferences and take as many classes on the craft as you can. That's at least how I did it. That was my path, and it was so helpful. I found a mentor that just helped me so much, and you start being introduced to editors who can help you with your book. And it's a journey. It's a long journey. It's not a quick journey. It takes time. It takes a lot of effort, but don't do it alone, which writers tend to do it alone. It's a solitary profession. You're at your keyboard by yourself for a lot of hours. But reach out to other writers is I think, the number one thing that helped me the most. And just taking the classes and meeting other writers and forming that networking.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I cannot stress enough the importance of having people by your side, by, having someone to, bounce ideas off of, read this chapter, read this paragraph. It only opens your mind because as writers, I'm sure you know, Karen, we get so immersed in our own stories. We're typing away, and you need a second perspective sometimes to think about new ideas, new things to change. Maybe something might be working better than another idea. So definitely agree. Do you have an example perhaps of something that you altered based on some feedback that you received from your groups?
Yes, another thing that I have is a beta reader. Now, some people have a lot of beta readers. I've come down to just one who's just read all my books. She's fantastic. She's not a writer, she's a reader. And so I get her perspective. And one of the books, she'll read the whole thing before it even goes to my editor. And she came back and said, I thought that the murderer might be this other person. And it was somebody I didn't ever think of. But when I saw, when she pointed that out, I thought, yes, that is so much better. And I actually changed the murderer based on her feedback. So kind of changed the whole book, but it didn't take much because the elements were all there. The clues, the red herrings. I mean, this person was, that would make a much better murderer.
Yeah, definitely. And, it's really cool to think about, you might not see something until somebody else sees it first.
Right.
And you're leading yourself in that direction and you didn't even realize it.
Right, it's true.
So that's perfect. So thank you for offering those tips. It's really important to have a community at your side. And also thank you for sharing a bunch about these books. To everybody listening today, go ahead and check the links in the podcast description here, because these are some really fun reads. You can get immersed into a whole new world. It's just, some cozy mysteries are all about, getting comfortable with a book, enjoying it, and trying to figure out the mysteries for yourself, of course, too. So definitely check those out. And Karen, just, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast today. We learned a lot about the writing process and about your mystery novels. So thanks again.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. I just want to thank you for, you shared your journey with us. You've shown us personal interest, how careful research can transform into the fiction too. So remember, everybody, Authors on Mission is about empowering you with the knowledge and self-assurance you need to become an expert in your own field. If Karen's story has inspired you to pursue your writing dreams, that's exactly what we're here for. You can find the books and, of course, the latest, Washed Up at Sea Oats Beach, in the description box of this podcast. And don't forget to check out our other podcast episodes as well. And until next time, keep reading, keep writing, and keep pursuing your mission. We'll see you next time, everybody.
This is Danielle Hutchinson reminding you that somewhere, someone needs the book that only you can write. Visit authorsonmission.com to start your legacy. Until next time, keep leading, keep inspiring, and keep thinking in chapters. Have a great day.